Hello, today we have Dr. Gregory A. Smith. I'm so excited to have him. He is going to talk about a very important issue going on in our country, and that is the overusage of pharmaceuticals. He has two films, American Addict and American Addict 2, The Big Lie, and today we're going to delve deeper into some of these issues. For some of the people who haven't heard our first interview, share a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm a medical doctor. I was in academic medicine. I went to Washington University in St. Louis for medical school. I was at UCLA and Harbor UCLA after I got out, and I actually did a fellowship here in Brooklyn years ago. And my study was always chronic pain and addiction medicine. And really what got me into this was that I started noticing that people just weren't getting better, and that when I would give them medication for a problem, it was a boomerang. They just kept coming back. And I'm like, aren't we supposed to be curing people, not just covering it up? Yeah. And so that's sort of what started opening it up for me. And I was always open-minded, but I just thought there had to be something better.
Yeah.
So then when we started looking more and more into this, and I was writing a book called American Addict, and I met the director, Sasha Nezev, at a party years ago, and he told me I should turn it into a film. And so that's sort of how it started.
Yeah.
And then when we started doing the research for American Addict, and when I started traveling the country and meeting people and started studying the history of medicine, I just was blown away. It was actually very emotional because I did not even know how it came to be the way that I was trained, that our medical system was sort of hijacked many, many years ago by, at that time, big chemical companies, which have sort of evolved into the pharmaceutical companies that we know of today. So my biggest concern is making sure people understand what is being done to them by our medical system, because we have some huge problems in this country right now.
Yeah, and what's really awesome is I know no doctor decides to go into medicine saying, I just want to pump my patients full of meds.
Exactly.
They want to go and they want to heal people. They want to help them get well.
Exactly.
And what's awesome is that doctors and patients can work in tangent to bring wellness into each other, into their lives.
That's what you would hope, yes.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have a conventional medical system that has ensured that when you go to a doctor, there's all the forces have come together to ensure that when you walk out of that office, most likely you will walk out with 1, 2, or multiple prescriptions for your problems. So it is, it's one of these things that you can follow the money, and I can sort of lay it out for people briefly, and here's how it goes. So when we look at our healthcare system, we are a reactionary system, meaning that we wait until people get sick, and then we treat them, and we treat them usually with procedures or pills. And that is offered to people as the first line treatment. And the reason it's offered that way is because our physicians are taught that. We have direct-to-consumer marketing, which the pharmaceutical companies spend tons of money on. So we have all these different factors that people go into the doctor's office expecting to be treated with some kind of medication. Now, I want to say, because I think many times I've been sort of either misquoted, or people take out of context and think that I hate medication. There's not a week that goes by that I myself don't write prescriptions. I write prescriptions all the time. Antibiotics and different medications we've had have saved millions of lives, and the pharmaceutical companies innovate. But what the problem is that natural substances, vitamin C, vitamin D3, glucosamine, just you can name hundreds. There's no ability to patent these substances, so there's no innovation, there's no research dollars going to it, because they're only going to spend money on things they can patent. So we have this huge void of things that could really help people because there's no money in it. So when you watch where the money goes, that's how our healthcare system goes.
And what I loved about both your movies is realizing that patients can be empowered and make choices to better their health. Because you said early on to me when we spoke that some patients will come in and demand, based on commercials they saw on TV, oh, well, this will make me all better. Please give me this medication. Write it out. I'm the patient. Do what I want. And without realizing all the side effects and everything that goes into it isn't probably, or most likely, best for your health.
True.
And so, doctors are in a conundrum. I want to help my patient, and they're demanding I give them this medication. And if I don't, they'll go to another doctor. Well,
the doctors think that that's the best treatment too. So again, I'm talking about conventional medicine. If people are going to integrative physicians or naturopaths, they're going to get a different type of medicine. But when you go to a conventional doctor, this is what you're going to get. So if we, again, when we look at the pharmaceutical companies, and I'm not just trying to focus on them because there's other people at fault here, but pharmaceutical companies are for-profit corporations. They are trying to make money, but they make insane amounts of money, insane. So you have to look at it and go, why is this happening? Is there really a push in this country for us to have a healthcare system that works? And I can tell you that after being in academic medicine, after being in the private sector, after doing these films and the research that I've done, and I've experienced from all angles, I think I'm pretty uniquely qualified to say. And here's what I concluded, and it's disturbing. And I went away from this conclusion over and over again because I didn't want it to be true. And the truth is I don't believe that the government and our healthcare system is really interested in making people healthy, because being sick is insanely profitable. So when you have high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, hypercholesterolemia, all these different chronic illnesses, people don't die. They live for long periods of time, but they keep coming back like boomerangs to get treatment. And that's where the money's at. So when we look at this, how much that the pharmaceutical companies spend to ensure this. So our political system in 2012 for the presidential elections, they spent about $51 million just for the presidential elections, about $21 million in 2014 for the midterms, and there's some reports they've spent already about 15-20 million already going into 2016 elections. And it's even worse for lobbying. They spend about $224, I think it was about $240 million in 2014 alone lobbying Congress. So they are the most powerful lobby in Washington, D.C. They are one of the biggest advertisers on television. They have influence in the medical schools and all the continuing medical education courses that doctors take. They direct the market, so people see this on television. So there is a full court press for people to go to the doctor and expect to get treated with medication. So we expect the government to do something to protect us. So does the government protect us? And I have to say the answer is no. We've had multiple medications approved by the FDA that have harmed people, that have killed people. And when we look at something like Obamacare, which was supposed to be the savior, this was supposed to be something that was going to make everything better. But I can tell you, when we were doing American Addict 2, I had a gentleman that I cannot say on the air, and when I was in Washington, D.C., tell me that there was backroom deals made with the White House by the pharmaceutical companies to ensure that Medicare Part D was not touched. And for those that are not familiar with that, Medicare Part D was something that the Bush administration brought in that ensured that Medicare would have to pay whatever amount of money the pharmaceutical companies asked for a medication. Something that Barack Obama campaigned on and criticized George Bush for, but yet left untouched when the Affordable Health Care Act came out. And it was left untouched because the Affordable Health Care Act would have never gone through if they hadn't have left Medicare Part D alone. So this all makes you realize that there is no wherewithal in the government to really fix the problem. The citizens are going to have to fix the problem.
And their hands are really tied, because if you think about it, you just mentioned before, the candidates are supported by the pharmaceutical companies. They're paying $100,000, $1 million, $500,000 for your campaign. Once you get in, they're going to expect some favors, and it can't be otherwise.
That's true. But the politicians respond to votes. They want to stay in office, so people can make a difference. One of the ways they can make a difference is they can start taking more responsibility for their own health care. So I tell people, if you go to your doctor, your conventional doctor, and you're given a diagnosis and a medication or whatever, that's fine, but get a second opinion. But get a second opinion by an integrative physician or a naturopath or something, and then choose what's best for you. Don't blindly take the advice and the treatment from conventional medical physicians anymore. Those days are just gone.
And here's a note for me. I met a wonderful woman who's helped me with my thyroid issues, and she is on the fence of not using totally conventional therapies for medicine. She wants to use some alternative therapies.
Right.
So she had said, for my young son, I didn't want to vaccinate him. She also didn't want to give him the flu vaccine.
Right.
She said, it's not necessary, I'm not going to do it. Well, she got a lot of backlash from other doctors saying, what's wrong with you? You're a horrible mom. You're a horrible doctor for not wanting to give your, how could you not do that? So she didn't do it. And of course, one flu season, her kid got horribly sick. And every single doctor that she knows said, see, we told you. And so now she started vaccinating her kid.
But it's just the flu. I mean, I tell people all the time, nobody, I shouldn't say nobody. There are people that are immunocompromised and have other problems that die from the flu.
Yeah.
But if you're relatively healthy, you just get sick.
Yeah.
But people have died from the flu vaccine. People die from vaccines. I know it's another topic. But again, this is a brainwashing that has happened in the medical system.
Yeah.
I was taught the same way. I was taught in medical school that you find the diagnosis, that was the key of the person, and then the diagnosis had certain treatments, which were usually either surgical, procedures, or pills.
Yeah.
And we were taught that chiropractic, nutrition, all these things were really just at their worst quackery and at their best just an adjunct or something that would be an add-on to the real treatment, which is the medicine. And it's simply not true. It's simply a lie. And when you look at the history of medicine and you see that it was sort of hijacked 100 so years ago, and we've been forced down a path of a pharmaceutical-based medical system, it really is an eye-opening, and it's a really emotional situation because you see how many people have been allowed to die and to have multiple problems when they didn't have to. Because when you think about it, when you go get a medication, there is not a medication that's ever been made that doesn't have a side effect.
Yes.
So a person has a side effect, they get a medication for the side effect. And if they take the medication long term, it has other negative effects on the body.
Yeah.
So if you do this for year after year after year, this is not a healthy way to go. All the while we're ignoring what is the root cause of that problem. So if you're taking a medication for high blood pressure, and you say, well, my blood pressure's under control, but why do you have high blood pressure? Why do you have high cholesterol, or why do you have diabetes? I mean, even people with type 1 diabetes can be helped. There's a Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, who is a big, talks about vaccines. But she also talks with a lot of experience and very educated about vitamin C and the benefits of vitamin C, which have again been shunned by the mainstream. But there is proof. There is scientific evidence showing of the benefits of that for treating things like diabetes. But diabetes is a tremendously profitable disease. So again, you have to ask yourself, why are these problems still there? Now, one thing I know I'm talking about, I'm taking over your show here, but the one thing I want to emphasize is that when we look at the outcomes of our system, it's really bad. It all started with the Starfield report that many people are familiar with. In 2000, Barbara Starfield was a doctor and also a master's in public health. She was in American Addict, the first movie. Unfortunately passed away before the film even came out. But she looked at 13 different countries, and we were coming in dead last in almost every category, like for longevity, for low birth weight infants, for neonatal and infant mortality. And more recent studies have shown the same thing. The Commonwealth Fund has done this year after year. And we are coming in last place in so many categories. At the same time, we spend way more money than anybody. We right now spend almost about 18% of our GDP, whereas most countries only spend about 6 to 8% of their gross domestic product. And yet our results are horrible. So if our results are bad, we spend too much money, wouldn't you think that all these years we would change it? And the fact that we haven't changed it, again, leads me back to the conclusion that they don't want to really change it.
And what I'm getting from all of this is and we talked a little bit before the show, how our society is really about quick fixes. And we've kind of been conditioned that way. Oh, the quick fix. I want a little pill, make me all better in one shot.
Right.
And we had said, if it took you 20 years to get cancer, it's not going to resolve itself in one afternoon.
It's true.
And so we've also, I think, as a society, gotten used to wanting to pass the buck and the responsibility over to the doctor, because we're very litigious.
Yes, yes.
We have a little problem, the doctor didn't fix it, well, let's take him to court.
Right.
So I think it's a little bit broader that, for one, people to realize that, hey, you can take your health into your own hands. There are now more and more doctors who are deciding, hey, I want to help my patients. They're becoming functional medical doctors, which means they add the traditional element along with the, homeopath or different things like that to help their patients in a greater mode and to come into unison with the patient to create a balanced well-being approach to building health.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's what's needed. That's what we're not getting enough of. And the other thing about that is that people have to have resources to get to that kind of medical care, and that's the other thing that's a big problem. We have an incredible income inequality in this country that's widening by the day. And so what you're getting is really two types of medical care. You're getting the elite medical care for the elites, and everybody else is getting what I call DMV medical care. So it's just pick a number and get treated in a cookie cutter way. But yes, if you have money and resources, you can get excellent treatment in this country, because you can go shop around and pay doctors cash that take cash only. You can pay naturopaths and integrative and functional medicine doctors. But if you have straight insurance, you're almost always going to be pushed into a conventional medical situation. And most people don't have the extra money to get the help.
So what do you suppose for those people? Because say they're out there, they're working paycheck to paycheck, they have a family to feed. Now I heard this on one news report that a Mexican family said, I don't want to eat, Kraft macaroni and cheese, but it's the only thing I can afford. I know it's hurting my family. What would you suggest that they could do to start helping themselves health-wise?
It's a huge problem. And when people are on limited income and people are suffering, and that's another thing that's really being glossed over by mainstream media, is that everything is fine. Everything is not fine. People are struggling at record numbers. Well, food is cheap for a reason. Cheap food, I think, is one of the biggest reasons people are sick. You get what you pay for. But I tell people, if you're going to get a pound of ground beef and to feed your family and you're going to make some dish with that, get the organic ground beef. And they'll say, well, it costs so much money. Well, then get half a pound and stretch it with other things. Go to farmers markets, because you can get things at farmers markets for very cheap. So it's a matter of taking that same budget and using it in a better way, because if you get quality foods, it actually can be cheaper, and people have shown it actually be cheaper than fast food. But fast food is convenient. Fast food is there. People have immediate gratification. They don't have time. And so, again, this is all on purpose. Keep people super busy, paycheck to paycheck, and it drives this system. Bad food, bad environment, makes people sick. Then they go get pharmaceuticals for that sickness. It's a huge, huge problem. And the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that right now, 80% of Americans are taking at least one medication a day. 50% are taking 2 or more. So 8 out of every 10 persons at this moment is on a pharmaceutical. So when someone's on a pharmaceutical, when someone is receiving all their information from mainstream, which is often propaganda, when people are so tired and busy, you have a population that's almost zombified to the point, because they're medicated, they're too busy. So they can't even research, when we talk about politics, the right candidates to get in office to change this mess. So this is a huge problem that really has to start with every individual watching and listening to take personal responsibility and force time to read, educate themselves, educate their family, support local farmers. That's what's going to drive the price of food down and have them eat healthier.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit also before the interview that there's more going on than what you can see with the eyes, and that includes what's going on with our elected officials and in the government. That there's something going on, because often the government, the people put in the government are, supported by a number of people like the pharmaceuticals. So what's going on behind the scenes? Yeah, you've had a little bit of research into that.
Well, what's going on behind the scenes is what it is. When you give people money, you are going to get their attention. You are going to get what I call FaceTime. So if you are giving money to a presidential candidate and they become president, once they become president, they are going to most likely listen to your agenda. It doesn't mean they're going to do everything you ask, but you certainly get the opportunity to be in front of people that the average person would never get. So the lobbying is a huge problem. They are the biggest lobby in Washington. They spend so much money, it is beyond belief. One of the things that the pharmaceutical companies also hide behind, they say, well, we make a lot of money, but look how much money we spend in research and development. Costs so much money, which is true. But they spend $19 for every $1. For every $1 in research, they spend $19 in marketing and advertising to doctors and the general public.
Wow.
So if they can spend that kind of money, they're making tremendous amounts of money. And again, when you look at it, 20%, there was a pharmaceutical company a few years back that got almost 46% margin. That's a profit margin is insane. Grocery stores are operating on 2-3%. They're getting 20% routinely. This is just greed. They would make plenty of money if people were healthier. That's what upsets me. People could be healthy and they'd still make a lot of money. But they're just making money at the expense of the population.
Because you can, I mean, there'd be times where you need medicine, so it's fine.
That's true.
Yeah, they'll need it, and people will be able to take pharmaceuticals when necessary. Now, what's interesting when you mentioned about the people being elected and the officials is that if people, what I find about the whole general elections is people are almost like it's voting for their favorite team. You know, and it's like, okay, people, do some research on each of the candidates, whoever you might decide to pick, and say, who are the ones being supported by whom? Are they being supported by the oil companies, by the pharmaceutical companies? And when you look further, what are their history, their actions? What have they done in the past that have helped or hindered the American people? And then say, okay, is this someone that truly represents me as a person?
You are so right, because that's what people unfortunately don't do. They tend to vote on things that they hear. I don't care what the candidates say. I look at their actions, because actions speak louder than words. And if people would look at actions, there are certain candidates that are still in the race right now that wouldn't even be wouldn't even be talked about at this point in time, because their actions have shown what their true agenda is. But again, when people are busy working 2 jobs, trying to just pay their bills, how do you have time to research? So they get their information from where? From the big corporate, CNN, Fox, CBS, ABC, etc. When all the while the media has been condensed into 5 or 6 companies now. So whether you're on the internet or the radio or television, you're getting the same controlled message. So you're not really getting to the heart of it. You know, I'm sure you've experienced this. You've been at home and you're channel surfing and you come up on C-SPAN. And you get C-SPAN, and there's usually some bloated guy sitting there, and he's talking like this, and on the Senate floor, and within a matter of seconds, right, you're like fighting off sleep. It is literally a cure for insomnia to watch C-SPAN. So what do? You go onto another channel, you go to some reality show, but that's exactly where they're making decisions about your life, is on C-SPAN. So it's out there, but it's so incredibly boring. It's so complicated that the average person just goes away from it. So we elect people that don't have our best interests at heart, and then when they do things that aren't good for us, we throw our hands up and go, why are they doing this? But they're doing it because that was their agenda from day one, if you just looked at their actions and not listened to their words.
And what drives me crazy about the whole election process right now and what's going on TV is it's turning into a big circus. And I hear people, my clients and such, are talking about it and excited. Ooh, did you hear what this candidate said? It's almost like entertainment. I call it infotainment. And I'm like, people, let's step back and realize this isn't about entertainment. This is about our life. This is about our country, and it's serious business. So but I'm very happy that you're coming out here to share this important information so people can start to be curious and ask questions, because that's where it all starts, asking questions.
It's an individual. Right now, we're in a situation. We are really in a fight for our lives. I mean, I really believe that. It's almost like a good versus evil thing here. And the way that you defeat it is to educate yourself. And no one can do that for you. I think a lot of times people are looking for a leader or looking for a person to just give their life or their situation over and just fix it. It's not going to happen. There is no one person that's going to come in and just fix it. Although Donald Trump says he's going to fix everything, there's no one person. The president of the United States doesn't have the power to do everything by themselves. It's a system, and most people don't even understand how our government really functions. So if you really understand how the government functions, you would realize that a president can only do so much. And I agree with what Bernie Sanders says.
Yeah.
I'm not agree with most of his socialist type policies, but I agree when he says that no president can fix this. This is going to take a revolution, so to speak, of the people to really do something, and that's where and the revolution, I hope, is going to be a peaceful and an intellectual revolution instead of a violent revolution. But that's what we're going to take. That's what it's going to take. It's an intellectual revolution where people educate themselves and stop electing literally these losers that have an agenda, which is usually big business and special interest.
Well, there's so much covered in your movie that I loved. One thing being children, how they're being affected by pharmaceuticals, which I wish we had more time to go into, but that's why they can watch your film for free. Tell them how.
They go to drgregorysmith.com. That's drgregorysmith.com, my name. And right now, they can just go in there and they can download and watch the movie on Vimeo for free. Yeah. We decided to not go the profit way. I just want to get this message out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you're doing that. It's so important. And I'm glad you're mentioning that, people have the power, because that's what it takes. It doesn't take having to take a gun and shoot your neighbor.
Right.
Because I think when it comes to politics, what really disheartens me is people's like, your mama, and they want to get all like, militant. And it's not necessary. What is necessary, and someone said on my show recently, it can make the biggest difference is buying power. None of the pharmaceutical companies or any of the big businesses that are hurting the populace can exist without our pocketbooks.
Right.
So we do have the power.
They will move where the money moves.
Exactly.
It's true.
So if we stop using it, they go out of business. So, yeah.
Well, they'll start making natural supplements or finding a way to patent them.
Well, it's been so awesome having you on, Dr. Gregory Smith. I want to thank you again for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.